In the minutes after the door collapsed and the last flashlight beam vanished into the fog, the clubhouse felt heavier than the broken wood lying across the floor. It wasn't the silence that weighed on the men, it was the realization that they had just survived something that was never meant to be a raid, but a message, a warning without words, a performance disguised as enforcement. And as the dust settled in the air, Sonny stood in the doorway like a man listening for an echo that hadn't arrived yet. Because what comes after a breach isn't relief. It's calculation. And California had just calculated something far bigger than a night of intimidation. The younger angels were pacing, their boots cracking over splinters, their anger rising like heat off asphalt. Two-Tone slammed a chair aside, pacing in circles, cursing the cops, the cameras, the politics, everything. But Sonny didn't raise his voice. He didn't join the shouting. He studied the broken door like a battlefield relic, a symbol ripped open too cleanly, too theatrically, too precisely. "This wasn't about tonight," he finally said. "It was about tomorrow." The men turned to him, confused, frustrated, hungry for answers. They didn't want an arrest. They wanted a reaction. And in that sentence lay the truth no one wanted to face. If they had reacted, just once, just one shove, one curse too loud, California would have captured it, framed it, fed it to the morning news, and swallowed the angels whole. Outside, the fog thickened, crawling through the streetlights like smoke from a slow-burning fuse. Little Mike stepped out first, scanning the alley for anything left behind, footprints, tire marks, anything that hinted at who stayed behind after the officers left. He kneeled by the curb and touched the asphalt, still warm. An engine had idled there for a long time, watching, recording, measuring. When he walked back inside, he didn't say a word. He just shook his head. Sonny understood instantly. The breach wasn't over. It had only changed shape. And that is where the real tension began, not from the state, but from inside the club itself. For the next hour, the angels divided into two invisible camps. The first camp, the younger riders wanted to strike back immediately. Ride through the city. Show force. Reclaim the streets that suddenly felt smaller, colder, more suspicious. "If they want a fight, we give them a fight," Two-Tone growled. His knuckles were white, his breathing heavy, his adrenaline refusing to go down. But the older men, the ones who had been through wars long before this one, argued for something harder than violence. Patience. Because patience in times like this feels like weakness, feels like retreat, feels like surrender. But Sonny knew that patience was the only thing keeping them from walking into the trap California had built. "They want us to snap," he said quietly. "That's the whole point. If we hit them tonight, we give them everything they need." His voice didn't shake, but the conviction behind it shook the room. What happened next would define the next 6 minutes of the story, because it wasn't to police pressure that nearly tore the angels apart. It was brother pressure. Two-Tone stepped forward, pointing a finger at Sonny. "We can't just sit here like victims." A few younger men nodded, murmuring agreement. The temperature rose. Shoulders tightened. Eyes sharpened. The clubhouse felt too small for that much emotion. But Sonny didn't step back. He stepped closer. "You think riding out there tonight makes you strong?" He said. "Strength isn't reaction. Strength is choosing the fight, not being placed into it." That line, simple, sharp, hit the younger men like a punch they didn't expect. And for a moment, the room froze again, not out of fear, but clarity. Sonny wasn't holding them back. He was holding the whole club together by threads. To break the tension, Bobby Six leaned against the bar, turning over a piece of splintered wood in his hands. "They had cameras," he muttered. "Big ones. Like the news already knew." The words hung in the air. And suddenly the twist became clear. The breach wasn't the story. The breach was the prelude to the story, which meant the real hit, the real play was already on its way. Sonny asked Bobby to tell him everything he saw, every detail, every camera angle, every officer's expression. And as Bobby spoke, Sonny started piecing together something no one else saw. The raid wasn't coordinated by local police alone. It had the fingerprints of someone higher, someone political, someone who needed an image so badly they were willing to stage it. And then a door creaked open from the back hall. Everyone turned sharply, tension ready to snap again. But it wasn't cops. It wasn't rivals. It was an older man, one who hadn't been in the main room during the breach. His name was Rusty, quiet, observant, the kind of man who noticed things others missed. He held something in his hand, a small black rectangle, a recording device. He had found it behind the vending machine, still warm, still powered, blinking red. "They bugged us," Rusty said. The words were quiet, but the effect was explosive. If the breach was for cameras, the bug was for conversation. This wasn't a single tactic. It was a multi-stage operation. And suddenly, everything clicked. California wasn't trying to raid them. California was trying to build a case without ever needing evidence, because evidence could now be created, edited, assembled. The war wasn't physical. It was informational. Sonny took the bug in his hand, weighed it, examined it like a weapon. "The real raid," he said softly, "happens when we say something they can use." And that was the moment every man in the room understood. They weren't just being hunted. They were being shaped, narratively, strategically, legally, psychologically. The older angels exchanged looks of grim understanding. The younger ones felt their rage shift into something colder, something more dangerous, awareness. But then came the next twist, and this twist would shape the final minutes of this episode. A bike engine echoed from outside, not a threat, but a familiar rumble. A friend, not an enemy. The men rushed to the doorway, hands ready, hearts pounding. And there, stepping into the fog with his helmet tucked under his arm, was Red Thompson. Not a member, not a cop, a reporter. One of the few left who had ever treated the angels fairly. His face was pale, eyes wide, breath shaky. "They're planning something bigger," he said, voice cracking. "Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight." The room stiffened. Sonny stepped forward. "Talk." Red swallowed. "They want the morning news to have footage of you reacting. That's why the cameras were here." But the real team, the one they didn't show, left the station 20 minutes ago. Sonny didn't blink. How long? Red didn't hesitate. 40 minutes. Maybe less. And that is when Sonny said the sentence that would define the next chapter of this war. A sentence that wasn't shouted, wasn't dramatic, wasn't angry, but carried the weight of a leader who knew the battlefield had shifted forever. "Then we don't wait 40 minutes, he said. "We move now, because the only thing more dangerous than a door breaking is what happens after."